So remember that how that last episode was, how several episodes ago we made it Valentine's Day. Well, now it actually is 14th February, and as you know, these stories are set a month later. So the 14th of February. This story is set a little bit before a month. It's not quite a month later. It's probably a couple of days later. This is going to be a transitional scene entering into the dialogue information of Where Angels Fear Not. And it's Rob Jung, Doug Month, Lizard. Those are the three guys, basically. There's 4 Jung Month stories and Lizard's story here. The first one is Warbirds. It was reissued in the Doug Month pile 2006 2018, but actually dates back to 1994. And Warbirds was, I believe, one of the original 98 stories as well. That was one of them. And Where Angels Fear to Tread was also from the 2004 season of the. I think it was pretty much the last of the unissued stuff. And now we're gonna, now we've taken some stuff that was beyond that magazine, included it too in the last. This is one of the 6 remaining episodes. So let's do this. This is the teaser. Well, it's actually been quite a few days. I know it's the 17th, and I'm going to begin filming this. I looked into the other stuff, the characters of this story, the various sort of Mulder and Scully army guys. 1994 was written. It was a Rob Jung story called the Warbirds. It was re-updated in the IDW comics. The Warbirds were part of the Wreckers, female Wreckers, basically. Lady Hawk is, of course, from Lady Hawk. It has nothing to do with Transformers, but they threw it in here. But his version is the 94 version, so there's a little bit of confusion, so some of the names will be changed. We have, some of the names changed, so keep that in mind. And it was kind of difficult figuring out how to bring about this one story that is just a short story, one of the stories, and introducing these characters. We don't want to reintroduce a lot of new people, being this is the first of the final 6, so why introduce a bunch of new guys? So it's not really a bunch of new guys. It's ones that have been kind of in the background, and that's just easier that way. So let's start this with we're introduced to the 2 agents, and then other stuff from there. I don't know if Prowl is actually in this one, although he's prominent in the other stories. I think they're going to change that and make it one of the other guys, just to make it more in line with the teaser. Yeah. A little more making clarification on this. The Warbirds are a comic book version of them that predates the IDW one, back in the 90s, maybe the late 80s even, and the IDW one picked up on it. So they've been around way earlier, so it's not his characters. I've changed one of them. One of them was called Papin to Killian instead. Other than that, the other thing, so this predates the IDW stuff in the 2000s, obviously. The Wreckers predates that. That's the comics and some of the shows. That works. The Wreckers actually weren't officially canon until the Michael Bay movies and the show. So something to thank the Michael Bay movies for making some Wreckers. They didn't do it quite right, but they did it. Because anyway, so. It's supposed to be Wheeljack and Springer and other ones like that in the comics. So, yes, another thing to add is that he introduces us to Nest, or the Nest. long before Michael Bay. I think Michael Bay was a Rob Jung fan, or at least Kurtzman and Erkey probably were. They probably didn't know what Michael Bay was doing. He would film, an action scene here and another action scene there. He had no idea how to connect those. Kurtzman and Erkey wrote the story. So yeah, because that's what he would do. Michael Bay would go around. The Chicago one, the one with Chicago in it, the Power of Love and all that. The Dark of the Moon, yeah, that one. That's what he did. He just went around the city, like he'd film like these action scenes and spectacular things blowing up, and then he'd just keep going, and it'd be okay, let's make a story out of this, which explains why in part 2, how he got the Smithsonian completely wrong, because he was thinking of the Tukwala Museum, but then they said no, it has to be the Smithsonian. It was totally the Tukwala with the area in the background. Washington State is what he was thinking of, not Washington, D.C. But then they threw Washington, D.C. in there, even though everything else said Washington State. He just didn't care. Cairo, Egypt, Israel's in there between Egypt and Jordan, and somehow that's just not there. He just gets up there and he's just there. Even though Spielberg produced it, he should have explained it to him. Anyway, so yeah. But yeah, this is Nest was introduced in 1994 in this story. And here is Nest next. The Nest. The Nest. But not Nest. The Nest. Greetings. So Kelly, yeah, we're doing Warbirds. I just completed, after the slowest week of doing any filming, Warbirds, which is only like 25 pages. But for some reason, the first one always takes the longest, and all the others hopefully will be shorter. This one had the battle between the humans that were introduced in the beginning of the story and the Transformers. But in this version, I tweaked it a little bit so that it wasn't the Decepticons that defeated them, and Warpath wasn't in it, but rather one of them was dressed kind of like Warpath in his exosuit, and he was the one that instigated the fight. And I tied it in, and from the beginning, there's been politics involved in the story. Apparently, it was written in the 90s during the end of the Clinton administration, but said to be the beginning of the of whatever was that? What was that for Clinton? Yeah, Bush Jr. Yeah. So it was during the Clinton years that it was written. But in this version, it's now with Biden years. We updated it to 2021, so it fits here too as well. And we have these two military types. We have Brandt and Wilmington and Killian, who is off camera and not seen in this scene. I don't know if he comes back. He's just an assistant. And they were supposed to die. Brandt and Wilmington were not supposed to be in the next act. They're just in this act. So that's a little bit part. Yeah, they were fated to be destroyed. I tied it into the birds, Warbirds, revealing that the whole time, Slipstream has been the real Lady Hawk the whole time in the story. And that actually makes a whole lot of sense if you go back to Corrosion of War when you saw her. And it kind of hinted at, wait a minute, she acts like Kitty Baller, but she's not Kitty Baller. She's not Circuit Breaker. She just acts a little like her. What's her deal? What's her thing? Last season and all the way through this season, a little bit more of her has appeared. And now we get the reveal that she, in fact, is at least one of them. She is one of the Lady Hawks. And that she has revealed herself to Kitty Keep in front of everyone else, because she figures the Autobots are on their side, so they're going to go together to Area 51. In the story, they're going to raid Area 51 like last year. I know some people raided Area 51. That was a bad idea. So it's kind of funny that I didn't find any aliens. But in this version, it's a silly version, Transformer version of Area 51. And they have a SDF ship there. They're going to go raid the ship. So we have, that's the premise of the last story in the story as they go to Area 51. So basically we have the area, the journey that they've started with this story. Rob Jung story, that month story. That will carry on into the other ones. I think one of the stories is a lizard story, but they're all otherwise all Rob Jung. And he, He likes hackers and computer people and nerds and things like that. And it was in the DNA of the other one too as well. So sure, why not? Yeah, all along, way back. This is very much like in the vein of Kevin Feige and the Marvel Universe. The Transformers universe, we have a whole... We know where the characters are going from the very beginning of at least this season. And we know that Slipstream was coming back to do that. Even though we hinted at, well, what about... Well, I thought maybe... first we thought maybe what have if Rachi showed up and did some of that stuff. But no, it was Slipstream. That makes a heck of a lot more sense, Slipstream. Ties into some other fan stories and fan theories about Slipstream. More so than it would the City Speaker coming back and doing it. So the City Speaker might be involved too. She might be one of them. She might be one of the Warbirds. It's likely she is. And the FEMs are related to that. And the Underground episode is related to that. It's all really goes back to that. He did not conceive of the FEM Wreckers. The FEM Wreckers were G1. Basically, when we're introduced to the FEM Autobots in the G1, they are essentially the original Warbirds. They are the FEM Wreckers. They are that's what they are. And Mark's Cards and I briefly discussed this last night. It's like, because he's seen some of the Mandalorian and so have I, and they introduced some characters that were like the Warbirds in there. Some Mandalorians that are dressed like that. Well, obviously clearly, and I've seen since then. I've seen The Mandalorian 1 and 2. I binge watched season 1 and 2, and I was like, well, clearly Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau and those guys are fans of the same thing. They've read that they're part of that original G1 Transmush thing too. They're fans of comic books and stuff like that, and back then, the Marvel comic books were Transformer comic books too. That was a Marvel line, a subline, originally. So Regeneration and IDW, they came later, and all that stuff. It's a Marvel subline. So yeah, of course, it's going to be similar because they read the same source material, same Warbirds. So they went back and they read the same thing. Could also tie back to Star Trek, Romulan Warbirds, which would be really G1. Also, they were Marvel and DC. Both Star Trek was done by Marvel and DC. So there's this weird, and then later on Marvel again. Later on, other people. So there's just this crossover between all the creators and stuff. It's sort of like the now ousted Joss Whedon working for Marvel and DC, going back and forth. It's sort of like James Gunn ousted and then coming back working for Marvel and DC. It's sort of like Kurtzman and Urke and Abrams doing Star Wars or Star Trek. It's that idea. They move around. They do different things. And that's perfectly fine. Michael Bay did a bunch of extra stuff. So it totally makes sense that there would be this, that there's a crossover. It isn't intentional. It's not we're not ripping off The Mandalorian. That's what I'm saying. We're not ripping off. This goes way back before that. The Mandalorian's ripping off TF boards from the 2000s because they're aware of them. They're like, oh yes, of course they are. That was a big deal. Oh, there was a thing. I was reading a treatise on the original Alt Transformers MUSH. Apparently somebody saw some of my fan films, even though my channel's not that big, but like and subscribe. Make it bigger. But my videos are big, so there's a lot of views, but not a lot of subscribers. And somebody did a report on what is Alt Transformers MUSH and Transformers Fanfic MUSH board, and what was that? And they basically said that it was the largest internet fanzine phenomenon of the late 90s. And and of course there's going to be fans of that show out there, hundreds of them. There's going to be fans of that Bellet board out there, hundreds of them. There's going to be anybody G1 fan that was going from Generation 2 to Beast Wars is going to be like, hey, totally, I know all about that. Was in there, yeah. And like somebody like T.L. Ahrens or something. Or Month, or Rob Jones. Okay, yeah, like when he pointed out, there was a message. Only message was, that early message about that was, Yeah, Jung and Muth are the same guy. This is his pseudonym. Oh, okay. But yeah, so Powers is a different guy, though. Rob Powers is related to Bob Carruthers and the other ones. Yeah. And X, maybe? Anyway, so, of the other guy? Yeah, probably. But yeah, so we have, it's interesting that these, like, this goes around and comes around. There were, in the early days of the internet and bulletin board services, there were of course naughty ones, or the porno slash ones, but there were two other things. Naughty ones, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Transformers were the main thing that was out there. You know, Transformers board, whatever. They even had creators posting there back in the day, for especially the Star Trek boards. I was on those, and the early Trek were under other Trek yards under earlier names, and the Transform boards under other names. And yeah, so to the point that there was even a Beast Wars design the Transmetal contest thing, the Transmetals, which I gave them a drawing of a Transmetal Dinobot, which they then made into a toy. Didn't get any royalties on that one, but Transmetal Dinobot is a Calcat. That's awesome. Also, this other version of this Transmetal Lady Hawk thing. It's not Lady Hawk, but Transmetal Eraser here is closer to the Cantrell design. So, Transmetal Eraser. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, so although the Cheetor and the Wolfang from that time period as Transmetals kind of resembled more something Mark's Cards would have done. So yeah, there was all it's a crossover. We were not in the show, but we kind of were in the bulletin board part of it. And the inspiration for Beast Machines and all that. Yeah, as we mentioned before, yeah, we were definitely in there. Also, it was kind of funny that there was a content creator guy that was like thinking the Netflix guy was contacting him and talking to him online. And that's kind of odd. Why would the Netflix guy do that? I'm a fan. I said, I PM'd him. I said, I don't think that's DeSantos. I think that's DeSanta. I think that's somebody else. And then that other guy went away really quickly. Because this is like, I didn't realize that wasn't really him. Like, yeah, I was a fan. So I would not post on there going like, but not say I was Rob Forward, obviously. Not. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, it's like I could tell when this person was like, no, they don't really work for Transformers. I can tell. They're just a fan. They got overzealous and they were like posting. Anyway, so so yeah, we were not involved in the Netflix show, although because the bulletin boards talk about it, we were able to go back and forth and make sure that our show, our Alt Transformers MUSH, does not follow the hints and stuff they've been giving about the Netflix show. Just to make sure we're not confused for the other one. The Netflix show isn't doing as well because it's kind of compressing everything and condensing it into its own version of Alt Transformers MUSH. And even Powers pointed out in his later blogs, yeah, it's basically corrosion. The War for Cybertron is corrosion of War of that end. So that whole series is, they've already done it, but I've done it too. So mine is closer to his original story actually than the Netflix one. And the video game, it's closer to it than the story. It's more what he would have done. Except he did. There was a comment about the Draconus Prime guy. He called him Lexius, and he said he was more like a Scattershot. He should have used Scattershot, but other than that, it's kind of cool. But I didn't want to use Scattershot. I had one, but I didn't want to use him. I thought, no, he's got to be somebody bigger and I wanted to use my Cartas from my version story. I used my Cartas. I wanted Carta names in there. I wanted my characters to be his. Here's the same thing. We have this part of the making of the movie. We have this scene, these guys. This part of the, what is this? Four parts so far. So this was one of. Let's check this one. The next one is a Perceptor one called Where Angels Fear to Tread, and I've retitled the whole thing Where Angels Fear Not. The next one is Change of Tune,
Angels Fear to Tread. Douglas Muth. Rob Jung. Change of Tune is Lizard. Lizard. Yeah. So I'm just reading these here. And let's see. This is Old Friends, New Beginnings. Slightly longer than the other one. And Prometheus. Not to be confused with the alien thing. So it's fine. Okay, so yeah. Fine. Okay. So yeah, we're a lot of Rob Jung in this one. A lot of Rob Jung. It's a Prometheus, Change of Tune. You didn't need to know all those names. I read them weird. Camera angle looked like shit. Okay, let me do that again. Yeah, so here we have the first one, Warbirds, Rob Jung, Warbirds. We have Where Angels Fear to Tread, Rob Jung. Rob Jung. We have Lizards, Change of Tune. We have Old Friends, New Beginnings, Rob Jung again. We have Douglas Smith. We have Prometheus, Douglas Smith. It's not Prometheus like that movie though. It's not with the alien. No, it's not that. It's not that. It's something else. That's the one they Area 51. The ship is the Prometheus in the story. Yeah, same as the ship. Yeah. So the Area 51. Yeah. So cool. But yes. And it's also the Greek story of Prometheus, which is there's a little bit of that in there, in that they steal the fire from heaven. He took his Prometheus made these wings of waxen wings. It flew up into the sky. He got close to the sun, the wings melted, and he goes, that's the myth anyway, and he falls. So, the wings of wax. Why would he build wax wings? I don't know, but it's he's an Olympian, so. It's a fly. It's a ship. Yeah, it's another ship. Yeah, they're building up to this tie-in thingy to our version of the Sentinels, but it isn't really our version, alternate universe thing. Kind of like what they kept hinting at with the X-Files. We are kind of spoofing the X-Files here because it's 1996, and they are too. And like. They kept building up this, there's going to be the mysterious alien invasion on the X-Files. The aliens is going to be like War of the Worlds and Independence Day and everything. It's like, no, it isn't. They're never going to do that. And they didn't. They got all the way to 1999. They never did that. They never showed the invasion. They never did that. It was never like Independence Day. Yeah. Well, this ballsy story, this last 6 episodes in the can, going along here, this one being 6. 6 of the remaining 6. 6, yeah. There's 6 left, and this is one of the 6. And yes, they're building up to the alien invasion. Who are the aliens? Who's invading? Well, if you're paying a little attention, you'll know. But there is an invasion. Yeah. So. Anyway, so that's you're going to find out later on. Okay, so this is a scene that will join the Warbirds to the next one. Yeah. So there. Yeah. Otherwise, they don't address the 2 shot guys at all ever again. So we have to pull it off. We have to do that now. I'm doing it later. Like how happened? So we're gonna address that. Yeah. So this is meant to be a scene taking place between Warbirds and the Preceptor, which is cliched, so we're calling it Where Angels Fear Not, is the title of the episode. So this is the next one. I'm going to lead into that one. It's not Preceptor anymore, it's Wheeljack, because we have Wheeljack here. No Preceptor. So, it'll be Wheeljack and Kitty. Wheeljack and Kitty. So let's do it. So that was Preceptor episode, which I've already blanked on. What did I call that one? What did we call that one? That wasn't Change of Tune. That's the next one. Very short. Very short. Let's see. Angels. Yeah, the title of the story is Where Angels Fear Not. In this story, the whole thing, but it's the shortest episode of the episodes. It was only 10 pages. 10.5 pages. So it was the shortest one, and it was Angel's Fear to Tread, which is a common term, a cliched term. It had nothing to do with angels. The story was originally about Junkions invading Perceptor's lab, and then the Decepticons also going into Perceptor's lab to get some technology from them. And I thought, well, why doesn't it just be those guys that they rescued in the last episode? It's actually them, and they're there, and they want to get one of them because one of them is one of their men, so they go in to get them. There, better episode, better story than what was actually written, and it ties into the last story. So it's like more of the last story, basically. Ties in very well. So yeah, I mean, when Angels Fear to Tread, as a cliched term, but then they make a bunch of other cliched terms. I updated it a little bit. I threw in mention of the Texas ice storm from well, it's still going on now, but this is supposed to be a month in the future. So yeah, I mentioned a bunch of other stuff. But I referenced pop culture and things that would drive Megatron nuts. Just Junkions and savants. In the script, he said idiot savants, but that's not what they're called anymore. They're called just savantic personality or whatnot. Idio is kind of like idiot. That's kind of mean. They don't call them that anymore. It's just savant-like qualities, basically. Yeah. And that's not the same as autistic at all. It's totally different. And people are often confused because of the movie Rain Man. The man in the movie Rain Man wasn't autistic. He was a savant. He wasn't autistic. He was a savant. They said he was an autistic savant, but that's not really possible. No, it's another group, another mental disorder group entirely. So one is a disability, the other is a disorder. So there you go. So it's a little different. Savant usually can't perform other tasks. They can only do one exclusive task that they're really good at. That's a little different than autistic. Autistic is the spectrum disorder of the their autistic director right here. I know about that. I'm really bad at math, but I'm really good at English and plotting these little stories together. I'm really good at putting these little stories. And so they're not all good at math. They're not good counting cards. Some of them are terrible at math. So when I do the science fiction, I have to make sure that I get the math right. There's probably errors. So I don't put math problems in my stories usually. But story and strategy problems and things like that, little details and things. Not very good at chess, but some of them are. Some autistics are very good at chess. Some of them are very good at problem solving and that kind of thing. They see the little pieces and put them all together into a big picture. See, whereas ADD, another disability, ADD is kind of the opposite of that, where the sentences don't form correctly when they come up with an idea or a thought or something. It gets lost in translation, and they see a big picture, but they can't form the big picture. And that's also a spectrum. And then there's another slightly related thing that's a disorder where OCD. That's different too. That would be like the character, Jack Nicholson's character in As Good as It Gets. It's OCD, not autistic. It's OCD. He would like do OCD things. Wash his hands repeatedly over and over again or something. Do other strange things over and over. It's not quite the same thing. An OCD person can't help going back to the thing they're doing over and over again, whereas an autistic person can be taught not to go back to that thing again. And then they're quite good at going to the next thing. But yes, they can be taught. Yes, they can be instructed, assimilated into human earth culture. And it makes sense that kids with autism and ADD would love Transformers and G.I. Joe, escapist kind of thing, because they can see the plots of a story as an escape from the reality of the mundane reality of everything. Even though what they do might appear mundane to other people, what they do is fascinating to them. They enjoy it. So like they can watch Transformers the movie dozens of times, or Star Wars dozens of times, or something, and get something new out of it each time. And they just sit there and watch it over and over again. Some of them are it's a spectrum. There's the spectrums of OCD as well. It's a spectrum. That's slightly more of a disorder. It's not a disability. It's a disorder. Yeah, so it's not something that can be cured with pills or something. No, it's not the way that works. Some people, though, that they benefit from it, but some not. So yeah, this is not a medical thing. I'm not advocating anything medical. But it is interesting that that they should mention it's in there. Jung in here is not like the counselor Jung, the famous like 20th century counselor. He's not related to that guy. I think he just chose the name because it could be funny, and he has Jungian ideas in his stories, which is kind of fun. But no, he's not the famous psychotherapist at all. He can't be. I mean, I don't think that he has around anymore. Carl Jung. Carl Jung's a different guy. Yeah. Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. Carl Jung, the wheel of which they later disproved. And also, yes, autistic children and adults are incredibly inquisitive about things because they don't understand the nuances of human behavior. They would not be good at lying because that requires nuanced behavior and reading people and then reading a room and kind of reading like on the spot and being able to like. So it appears in some cases that they appear to be disingenuous or disaffected or whatnot, but actually they're not. It's that they're thinking things out. They're confused. So if an autistic person's like pauses for a minute to figure out what you said to them, it's not that they're disingenuous or they're apathetic. They're trying to figure out what it is you just said. It confused them. And they're like, what? It's kind of like hard of hearing a little bit, in a sense. So yeah. And they're trying to figure things out. Now, sometimes it could, because usually somebody who's a good liar in the story, or a concept, or a person, or a politician, or something, if they're a good liar, they're twitching a little bit. There's something on their face that's giving it away, which the autistic person doesn't read very well. Nonverbal communication, they don't read that very well. So if somebody tries to flim-flam them, but if they learn from the flim-flamming, if they've seen several other people do it, it's like the old adage, you can't out-con the con artist. Once they learn the techniques the other people are using, they take like a couple classes in media theory and stuff like that, or take a couple classes in like online things or whatever, and a couple classes in that, they figure out those nuances. It's not that they can lie, it's that they figured out somebody can lie to them and they can stop it and not be lied to. They can see like the nuanced stuff, the details in, say, a political speech or something, and go like, wait a minute, that guy's saying what that other guy said 3 days ago there, and nothing to do with that. And the other people will be baffled. The regular, normal people would be baffled. Did that guy really say that 3 days ago the same way? I didn't notice that. The autistic person did. It's like zeroing in on it, going, oh yeah, he said that. Exactly that. And they go and they play the tape, and it's like, oh my goodness. So it's like, there it is. So it's like, yeah, you could tell stuff once you learn how to do it. Anyway, so there's a little nuance thing for you. Not medically sound, though. Just no personal experience, I'm saying. Not a psychologist. But I've been to many a shrink, and I can tell you the male ones don't know what they're doing, generally, as a rule. But yes, but yeah. Anyway, so that's it for the evening again. Yeah. So yeah, there's the Transformers thing. Yeah, nuanced thing as a kid, like the show. There's nothing wrong with that. An escape, there's nothing wrong with that. The idea that there's something that Michael Bay missed in the Michael Bay Transformers show right out of the gate. He missed how nuanced the characters were. He missed the different personalities they have. He didn't care. If they just do this, whatever. He tried to do that with Skids and Mudflap, but it didn't work. It came out as Step and Fetch It and sort of vaudevillian and weird, when it should have just been more like, oh, well, they just have personalities. They don't have quirks. He was saying they have quirks. Everybody had quirks. Everybody, guy with the donuts had quirks. Sheila Booth had quirks, but that's not a character. That's just quirks. It's like excellently portrayed in the most recent episode of WandaVision, where the character of Kit doesn't have, well, she's the actress's kid. The character in the story, Lorraine or something, she's not just quirks, she has a backstory where she's like a hacker or something. There's a backstory to that, and the way she would act in this, and she has a love of television shows. So she goes in there and this is a nuanced character that has figured things out, and that's interesting. And yeah, so something like that, So we have somebody like that. We have Kitty Baller, who was this guy. It's actually a Dreadwing, and so are the other two Prime guys. That's our Prime guys, and he is Baller. And also, I was told by what's just funny. I watched the John Solo channel on Greek mythology. He talks about Greek mythology a lot. He's going on the Greek mythology. He's like, Balor, Kitty Balor. Balor fun. That's what he is. He's Balor fun. The trickster god from Olympus who messed around with Hera's daughter or something. It's that guy. It's Balor fun. Yeah, so that's totally what he's supposed to be. He's Balor fun. Battlefront, yeah. Something like that. So yeah, he's kind of like Loki, but he's like Loki's like brother or something, cousin, brother/cousin, because the Greek gods all banged each other. Like, yeah, he didn't care. Some of them turned into horses and chimeras and things, and and swans and stuff. Lita and the Swan, yes. It was, yeah. Let's talk about those crazy little details we had when I was there. There was a spaghetti factory. Had a the spaghetti factory had this big poster of this lady and a swan, and they're like embracing, and it's all romantic and stuff. And I had studied art class at San Jose State and all that, Evergreen and San Jose State, art but mainly I was journalism and liberal arts journalism. But before that, it was creative writing, so there was some art classes in there. So yeah, so there's art classes there, and yeah, I knew what that painting was immediately upon looking at it years ago. And we go to the spaghetti factory and we'd sit down. There's a big painting. That's Leda and the Swan from Greek mythology. Everybody was like, "What?" That's what it is. It's Leda and the Swan. They're, oh yeah, they walked up to the bottom of it and said Leda and the Swan. Did you read that there in the corner? Thinking, no, I just knew it. Anyway, so yeah, it was very it was rather obvious. It's not even an Art Deco painting. It was like very realistic looking. It looked like a swan and it looked like a lady, so you could infer that that's what it was. But they didn't. The other relatives. Anyway, so there you go, Leda and the Swan. But yeah, Balor fun, Kitty Balor fun. I don't know if he's gonna have any goddesses, but I don't think so. Gorilla milk, huh? That's pretty gross. Okay, yeah, gorilla milk. Yeah, don't use that. Yeah, don't use this. You can cut the beginning of this off. But I'll do late on the 23rd, and we are filming Anthony. The other one. Yes, Anthony Bacrali's story. Bacali. I think we did one of his before. This is another one. Old Friends, New Beginnings. Chapter 1, but there are the chapters don't matter because it's only an episode. So now we're going to film it, and we're beginning the Area 51 arc. That is the culmination of this story. So here we go. Okay, the floor was in the shot, and it was broken in half. This was slipped over. It is again. And, yeah, it was going to look like shit. So, we do this part over, and let's do it. So, oh yes, so this is Silly Kelly again. And we didn't get to a whole lot of this, really. We got to Wheeljack's lab. We did get into this episode, and then we got to Area 51 in the story, and it's connected to the other story, which also takes place there. So we put them together. The other one is a Rob Jones story, the Prometheus. That's not what the name of the ship here is, though. I think that's probably the code name. They don't mention it in this story what it is yet. There's a ship, Cybertronian presence. Something weird's going on there. Gonna find out. It was an Ark ship in the original story. They had an Ark, another Autobot Ark in there. A ship crash thing. The Decepticons raced on ahead. Established that some of them got together with Starscream just before this episode to come out there, so they got back together. And we also had them have a fight. So moving this all forward, it's now, on the camera it'll show it's 10, but it's really 9. And it is time to end for tonight. But we got up to page 7 of the newest story. It's this last 15 days. Well, what are you going to do? February. It will be out by the end of the month, the 28th. It'll be the end of the month, yeah. So it will be in February, it just won't be out yet, because we have to finish it. Yes. Yeah. But it will be set in March, around the 17th in the story. So, roughly 17th, 18th. Probably takes place over a few days, but it's not specific. Anyway, so that's it. I just thought to note that the two scientists in the story are called Randall and Hicks. And they are literally the two characters from, apparently they're doctors in this version, from Clerks. So obviously we can't use that. I'm going to go on to the ship scene, and it's not going to be Sea Spray and Power Glide and the other guy, and Beachcomber that he finds, but 3 other Autobots that they've kind of been building to for the last. So they'd have to be 3 that predate all of the others. So in order for that to work, it would have to be some other Transformers that we have not seen yet. Unless it's a time warp thing, and they're going to do the Star Trek episode of Little Green Men and have Ferengi from the future that have transported 3 times. But yeah, it can't be what they are. So we're going to find out what they are on the crashed ship. The Area 51. They met no resistance, incidentally. Probably have to address that. And also note, this story was written in 1998, I believe. 1998 references S-71 as a Autobot, even though that probably would have been Irate or something originally. That would have been the Concorde guy was Silverbolt, but yeah, and even if he rewrote this in 2006, it's before the Michael Bay movies, and it's certainly before the 2009 one with the sequel, where the SR-71 Jetfire, which was not correct in the movie, and he was more like Cup than Jetfire, but he probably should have been called Overlord in the Michael Bay movie. He wasn't, but he should have been. Anyway, here we have a reference to SR-71 Blackbird, which I referenced here. I jumped ahead to 20 to reference the Blackbird here, because it made more sense that they'd come across it while they're running away. And also let it known that, I don't think Michael Bay was reading this story in Alt Transformers MUSH, but it's certainly a weird coincidence. And the characters of Dante and Randall he's thrown in here are a lot like Shia LaBeouf's character and his roommate in college, more so than they are Dante and Randall from Kevin Smith. So there's this weird sort of like, okay, they clearly the people that were doing the Michael Bay universe read the MUSH. They must have, or somebody did. Maybe Orky or Kurtzman did. And Bay just said, okay, that's cool, put it in there. And Kurtzman or Urchi are probably to blame there. And so they're not in the same shot. So. Okay, Silly Kelly. We have just completed Anthony Bercrawley's Endings and Beginnings. That was the one where they get to Area 51 and they go inside. The last act is next, and that is the one where they do the other stuff. His story had reference to Dante and Randall from
who somehow became space doctors from Clerks. Now they become space doctors, even though neither of them would be. There were references to the SR-71 Blackbird Decepticon guy, spy dude. And before Kurtzman Nurki and Michael Bay wrote the second Transformers movie, long before, way before. Unless he rewrote it to include that scene for some reason after the movies, which is possible but not likely because the website was 2098 and 2006. So probably not. Probably not. So yeah. Yeah. So they're yeah. It's a Wheeljack story. Helped deal with Wheeljack finding these three guys that were time trapped. From one of them was the Michael Bay Hound, who was basically Bulkhead. And Bulkhead from Transformers Prime, possibly, and another Hound from Generations. They did not examine the characters that much. They activated one of them at the end. And yeah, basically running down what happened. But yeah, so yeah, we're done for the evening on this one. It's yeah, the next one will be the next 22 minutes or so. And we'll finish that up. And that's it. I got nothing extra, really. I'm going to pop back in with another making here. Indicate that I did change Dante and Randall, because why would that be them? To Lang and Paradron, who looks like one of the, who looks like Chromia. Basically, so she's there. Chromia, it could also be Chromia, it could also be the other one, but it's Chromia. And there's not a Firestar. They renamed her Nova Star, and they renamed the bluish one. Yeah, they renamed a bunch of them. Lancer. Yeah. So yeah, there's the purple and orange one is Lancer. So yeah, the bluer one she came with Chromia, but she would actually be this one, this green one. Wrong colors. Yeah, this would be Chromia because it would be chrome color. Chrome, when it oxidizes, it turns into something more like a green, a light greenish turquoise than it does sort of a blue. It's more of a green turquoise. Yeah. So yeah, the Dante and Randall obviously aren't. So it became Lang and Paradron. Lang and Paradron, but still characters reminiscent of Kevin Smith characters. I still made them kind of sound like maybe Affleck and his paramour in Jersey Girl. Anyway, so sort of, kind of. Yes, a little bit of Good Will Hunting voice in there, kind of. I didn't want to make him sound exactly like Dr. Emil Lang from Sentinels. I made him sound more like sort of a slightly Eastern European accent rather than just another German accent. Yeah, it's like, no, we've done that a bunch of times. Eastern European accent. Not sure what he is. He's from somewhere, maybe Ukraine or something. I don't know. Anyway, so yes, someone like that, or he's just pretending, or he's Swedish. Maybe he's Tommy Wiseau, but we already kind of did that one on another character. Tommy Wiseau bot, who was Nitro when we first saw him. Then we changed Nitro's voice to sound more like Chiron, so we made him sort of froofy. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for what we did with this. It was changed. We did follow most of the dialogue, though. The idea that he's 200 years in the future and he wakes up and it's a time trap thing, like in that Star Trek book about time trap. But he was also thinking of probably Future Imperfect, of which time trap was loosely based. So there you go. Yes, that episode of The Next Generation was basically time trap, done as a Next Generation episode. So Riker discovers he's not really in the future. He's in a cage on a planet and escaped the alien. That's not what happened in this version, though, because they changed it so he didn't go to the future. Still in 2021. Yeah, they're just going to Area 51 to see weird stuff going on. find the other base. And what's funny is we don't actually show the whole ship at any point because we'd be showing the same ship models over and over again that we used as stock footage. And we don't have... Yeah, it's unlikely that by the time this is done, there would be a full-size ship with sets and all that stuff built. That would take months more to build all that, so yeah, we don't need to do that. It's the Transformers that are interesting. It's what they're journeying towards that's more interesting than having them find some big eye candy, let's film it for 15 minutes, space set ship thing. They don't need to do that. No, it's a stage show on a stage. There's clearly like actors, like Transformer toy actors. It's a play set that's going on. Some fans have done some new stuff that's quite like that. The eyebrow and the other guy have done a bunch of stop motion stuff. They've apparently watched some of ours and they thought, no, we can do stop motion. Watch, we'll do it. And they did. And they did a good job. But we can't. You know, it's awesome that you guys did, but lazy eyebrow. But yeah, we don't do that. We're more similar to the style of Emgo, the freaking geek. Although we don't know him, but he did. He was inspired by the same mush and the same people, and he did his own little thing when he had 30,000 views. He did the Dinobot Wrath story. He did the Dinobot Exile / Wrath story, with a little bit of Andraxis thrown in. He did Andraxis basically. He did Andraxis, yes. Whereas in that universe, in that story, the Dinobots were sort of evil in that story, which doesn't make sense, but okay. And it was a future, and it was future imperfect. It ties into time trap. But in this version, it's not the future, and these other ones are time trapped to the 40s. So apparently the Roswell incident was actually a Transformer Cybertron thing. That's in the script. He is borrowing that from Star Trek as well. They did a couple of times in Star Trek. Yeah. So yeah, he's just visiting stuff that's already been kind of hinted at and stuff. It's kind of funny that the little green men are robots, and they're little green men. We noticed it. Yeah. They weren't grays. They were little green men. Well, of course, the real story of Roswell was not nearly as exciting as all of the things might say. It was a real story. Ooh, you know. The real story is simply that it was a spy balloon plane thing. Spy balloon collided with a plane. The debris went all over this guy's farm, and the government went in to retrieve it from the farm. So that's all it was. Now, they didn't say what side the spy plane was on when it collided with the weather balloon. That's why they ran in there, because it was like, oh, it's probably a rescue. Oh, we got to go in there and stop it. And that's why there was a secret. It wasn't aliens. It was like a spy glider and a balloon plane. There was like the thing about the ambulatory drones and all that. That was just later reported that, and that didn't actually happen. There weren't bodies lying around. There was nothing like that. It was just weights from the balloon laying on the ground, and there were bodies lying everywhere because the plane crashed. Well, there were two bodies from the pilot and the co-pilot of the spy plane that went down, but yeah, they were dead. But they weren't like ambulatory robots. They were just two dead dudes, and there was a plane. You know, so why would they have dummies flying the ship? That doesn't make any sense. The plane, you know, there were weights on the balloon that it crashed, and the plane. You know, that's the story anyway. It's not nearly as exciting as flying saucers and alien men with gray big eyes and all that. It's just they didn't want their spy plane to be known to the public. Yeah, I don't really know what the spy plane even looked like. So yeah. Anyway, so that's Roswell, but we're doing a silly version of it. That's not all accurate, because why not? Because more X-Files-y than the other one. And yes, this is supposed to be a fun episode, even though apparently the Decepticons kill humans in it. It's just kind of messed up. Well, it's all make-believe. Oh my god. Okay, this episode is titled Prometheus, and it has nothing to do with the Prometheus. It has nothing to do with any kind of a Ridley Scott movie from decades later, and it has nothing to do with the Michael Bay universe. This guy predicted Sector 7 as Sect in here before Michael Bay did, so clearly Michael Bay was a fan of Rob Jung, or Christopher and Urki were, and this other guy, and so then they put him in here. There's no other explanation. They were fans of the Mush. They had to have been. Which begs the question, then, how come the Michael Bay movies weren't as human-like with the Transformers? Why did they make them all stilted and make the human characters sitcom characters? If they knew they went on the Mush and they posted there under some kind of pseudonym, if they knew, why didn't they make the Transformer movies under Michael Bay awesome? I mean, more so than they were. Yeah, with less Shia LaBeouf and dumb Stephen Fetchit robot jokes and dumb sex jokes and Humpy Dog and all that, Humpy Robot and all that stuff. Why didn't they make it like it's about the Transformers? I don't know why they didn't. They obviously were on the Mush when they wrote the Michael Bay movies. They read them. They didn't use any of them, but we're using them. We're going back and we're using all these Mush stories this is season 2. And there are only 12 stories in season 2. And this is Prometheus, and it's a short story. It's one of 4 in this collection. And like the one before, we had the oddity of them being then relevant, having Dante Hicks and Randall show up from. No, we couldn't do that. So what we wanted to do was the same thing happens here. We have literally Agent Cooper from the X-Files. No, not X-Files. Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks showing up in the story for no reason. And then he, interrogates somebody later. Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks and Ted Koppel interviewing the Autobots. Because in 1998 or so, when this was written, that would have been relevant. They would have been like, oh yeah, Ted Koppel, of course. Yeah, that guy. He's a famous anchor and stuff. And that'd be cool. It's not in this universe. It just doesn't quite work. It's not about Transformers anymore. It's about just having a speech with Ted Koppel and Optimus Prime in it. And that's clever, but doesn't fit in this story, in this universe. So there are some drastic changes to the beginning of the story. Because, Koppel's not relevant anymore. Unfortunately, now if they did something like that, it would probably be Sean Hannity, and I don't want to do that. No, or Rachel Maddow or something. I don't want to do that either. I don't want to do that. There's no reason to do that at all. And make it about Earth politics and stuff. The Prometheus in the story, catching the fire from heaven. The idea is the Transformer technology would be like the Prometheus, catching the fire from heaven. Not a ship, not an ideal, not an alien vessel, not anything like that, but more stealing the energy, the fire from heaven. Yeah. Prometheus stole the fire from on high and took it out of the. Yeah, he took it. He took the fire from the gods from Olympus and gave it to man. Yeah. So that's kind of what the gag is here. But the way I reshot this scene, I made it work because I had to say okay, the Autobots are discussing it, whether they should or shouldn't do it, and based on this season and the last one, they really don't want to do it because they know the humans would totally exploit it, and worse, the Decepticons would totally exploit it. There's a throwaway line later on page 4 or 5 where they actually do say that. They say, the Decepticons would use it as a weapon, because they would. No, they would just take it from the humans. Look at Nightbird. So the Warbirds are female wreckers in the story, but they're sort of a myth in the story because they were in the story like that. They're not the female underground wrecker car bots, but they're kind of imitating them. So in this version, it's Min-May and a few others, just to be funny. But yeah, they don't. They just admitted that they're not them, that they were playing them to try and lure them out. And Hound is and we see Prowl here, and
Prowl and Ratchet and Red Alert they're in the story, so I put them in here finally. And they have a cameo. And of course, I made the Ratchet sound like Jeffrey Combs. But yes, but yeah, the guy from Reanimator and from Deep Space Nine. There's a Star Trek reference in the story, Discovery, but he wasn't in that. But it has to be current. So she has not seen the finale of Star Trek Discovery. That's what she's talking about. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't come up again. But that was in the script. I haven't seen the finale of Star Trek. That was in there. So I did keep some of it. I rewrote the scene so it's more in keeping with this story. I do that sometimes with them. Last couple episodes, I did the dialogue almost verbatim. But yeah, this one had to be tweaked because we can't use Ted Koppel when interviewing Optimus Prime. That's just weird and doesn't work and isn't clever anymore. It's dated. Oh no, it doesn't work. I think he's dead, so it really wouldn't work in 2021. Anyway, so so no, yeah. We don't want to throw any modern news broadcasts. I don't want to throw any modern politics in because that dates it. So I just say this and that siege happened, or this and that pandemic happened, or the Texas oil freeze happened, and all that. But it's in the background, like it's just like a throwaway line, like the Texas ice storm was terrible. Okay, and then they go on to the next thing. So it's not part of the story necessarily, but their idea that they need the Energon, the Transformers still need the Energon, of their own volition. They need their own they need Energon, and they need to cure the space plague before it kills all of them. And the human cures aren't going to work for them. Yeah, so that's a different virus going on at the same time in this universe. I read about up to page 7, which is when they end the broadcast to the people. I didn't do a broadcast in this version. Cooper is another Cooper, and there's an Asanavoff, because her name is Ass. And there's Cooper. Cooper's not really supposed to be Agent Cooper. He's supposed to be a businessman or something. And then they do like the Megatron's master plan thing, sort of, kind of, which is no, not gonna do that. So yeah, Agent Cooper and is not Agent Cooper. He's a businessman. And the other stuff is, no. There right there is the fourth wall breaking G1 scene that's going to make all the fans go, oh, Robotech. Yes, finally. Yes. That's what I want you to think when you see that one. Like, okay, the G1 Skyfire's Robotech show up. That's, you see the making of later, you'll see that. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, they're not the right scale to these guys. These guys are smaller than they are. But the Dinobots are the wrong scale too. And the other way, the Dinobot should have been the size of the Veritex, to be accurate. And the Veritex should have been smaller, but oh well. A little smaller. Yeah. Optimus Prime would be like 30 feet tall, and he would the Veritech would be 50 roughly. So yeah, it'd be a little taller, but only a little. Yeah. So I think it works. I think it works to have the G1 guys in there, and it's cool that they get to show up. And now they're going to give the Decepticons a rude awakening. Prometheus. They took the fire. Yep, Prometheus. There we go. Except I actually made it more like they were taking the fire physically from the data, the memories, or the story from the Transformers. And so the Prometheus character is, in a sense, Kitty Bellerfun toward the end there in the other realm, but it's also Wheeljack. It's a Wheeljack story. It's also a Penumbra. Those that stole the fire from heaven, and Megatron getting chased off. So yeah, sort of, there's like weird illusions going on. Nothing's supposed to be anything. It's not like it's a message.
It's a message about hope and stuff like that. But other than that, it's not a political thing or religious thing or anything. It's just a fun space story, and this was the wrap on that. And yeah, so finally after 12, it seems like it's been 12 days, just trying to put it together. It's finally wrapped. So this evening, so they're done with this. We're gonna put it together, and it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, this is the second half of the story that was continued in Ties to a Meltdown. This is Where Angels Fear Not, and there had to be angels at the end, so they're space angels. Yeah, so otherwise it can't be called that, right? And the Warbirds are sort of a spoof of that. They're sort of the anti-angel, they're archangels. Yeah, they come in to save them. So there's like this weird quasi-religious thing, but it's not really anything. It's not any one faith. It's just kind of its own goofy sort of Transformers thing. Don't take it as a mythos. It's not. Don't take it as some sort of weird allegory. It really isn't. It's just being weird. Anyway, Transformer. This is there's this was number. This was the last one was 7, so this is 6. This is 6, so there's 5 more. Yeah. So anyway, so Kelly, I directed it.